Herbicides have been in the hands of farmers and homeowners for over half a century. This invention would trigger a worldwide revolution in agricultural output due to the selective herbicide that would kill the pesky weeds and avoid harming the desired planted crop. In the U.S. in 2007, about 83% of all herbicide usage was for agricultural production. In 2007, the world spent about $39.4 billion on pesticides. Herbicides were about 40% of those sales and constituted the biggest portion, followed by insecticides, fungicides, and other types. Smaller quantities are used in forestry, pasture systems, and management of areas set aside as wildlife habitat.
Has the use of herbicides added profitability to your farm?
Herbicides have allowed us to spend more time doing other things, instead of walking beans or worrying about the crop's yield. Now we can leave our crops in the field and spend time fixing fence, working on equipment, or spending time on livestock. This has really allowed us to make money in other parts of agriculture and the agriculture business.
Nice. How often do you consider new products?
I work with my local rep on what products to use. If he brings me a new product to me, I research it, decide if it would be beneficial. But if I have no need for a new product, I generally don't change.
Sounds like you put a lot of thought into that. How often do you see herbicide resistance on your farm?
It's hard to quantify resistance because you never know if the sprayer was set wrong or if the chemical wasn't mixed right or if you just accidentally missed a spot. However, over time I have seen an increase in different populations of weeds after we spray throughout the growing season.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time.
Dr. Van Nostrand, could you explain how herbicides work?
Sure. Herbicides may work in several different ways, depending on which herbicide we are talking about. To keep it simple, herbicides generally work as inhibitors that block certain processes in weeds. For example, glyphosate is a common herbicide popularly known as Roundup. It works to inhibit amino acid synthesis. Atrazine works to disrupt photosynthesis, and others they target cell division and plant growth.
Okay, how have you seen herbicides change over the years?
Well, actually, many of our most commonly used herbicides have been used for many years. For instance, 2,4-D was first introduced in the 1940s, so 1945, just after World War II, and still widely used now, 70 years later. Atrazine, another one, was developed in 1958, and glyphosate, Roundup, came in the market in 1974. So many of the most commonly used herbicides have been around for quite a while. The biggest development in the herbicide world that I've seen over the last couple of decades has been in the crops themselves. Herbicide-tolerant crops such as Roundup-Ready beans and other Roundup-Ready crops have revolutionized weed management and simplified and made the process more efficient for farmers. This cuts down on the number of applications and allows the applicator to just blanket the entire field, which is much easier that way. This has been the biggest change I've seen in my time working with and studying herbicides.
What are some misconceptions about herbicides, or just something the general public probably isn't aware of?
Well, one thing the general public may not be aware of, but they should be, is the increasing problem of herbicide resistance in weeds, particularly in glyphosate-resistant weeds. Herbicide resistance in weeds happens usually as a result of using one herbicide repeatedly in the field without rotation, and the introduction of glyphosate-resistant crops has been very beneficial for farmers, but it really has led to a decreased rotation in herbicides in fields. And this repeated use of the glyphosate without rotation has led to an enormous increase in the number of weeds that are resistant to glyphosate around the world. That number is more than 200 species now around the world. And for example, here in the Midwest, water hemp is a weed that we see showing resistance that's giving farmers a lot of problems. That's giving a lot of trouble to farmers. Many of the chemical and seed companies are working on this issue, but it's yet to be seen how effective this is going to be, since other herbicides such as 2,4-D and atrazine are also showing signs of resistance.
Okay, thank you very much.
As a group, we recognize that herbicide resistance is a problem that has been developing for a while, creating problems for farmers everywhere. At the same time, there haven't been any solutions to stop the problem. Herbicides are going to be used regardless because of their simplicity and ability to increase yield. The industry also houses a number of jobs and accounts for $39.4 billion, as stated earlier in the video. Weeds evolve over time and are going to become resistant to whatever methods we use unless we want to walk through fields and pick weeds by hand. We would rather select for weed resistance than select for individuals to get food from a scarce food supply.